Yes. They show they're on the participant list, so they should be here.
Okay.
Patrick, we're good to go.
Are we?
Yep.
It's hard for me to tell.
It would be easy to tell. Tom's the only person in the room besides the FPDR staff, so.
Okay, yeah, I think, well, yeah, it's hard for me to recognize. It's very small on the screen. Okay, I guess we'll get started. May 27th meeting open for business. And before we go into minutes, do we have any visitors that are going to come or not?
No, not today.
Okay, then we'll move to administration item number 1, which is approval of the March 18th, 2025 minutes. And I'm opening the floor up for any notes, corrections, comments.
Either of those.
Okay. I'm hearing from nobody, so I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
And I'll second the motion.
Great. And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I heard 2.
Aye.
There's 3. Okay. Julie, you got dual roll today. I don't know if you can tell who's giving ayes or nays. So those minutes are approved and passed, and no visitors on the agenda. So we'll roll it right into action item number 1, the resolution 559 interfund loan. And I believe that's Sam, correct?
That is me.
Oh, I'm
and
sorry.
Nope, that's okay. Can you guys see me? Okay. I guess you don't really have to see me. You just have to be able to hear me. So as long as you can hear me, you're good. So the board has before it today a resolution to approve an interfund loan to manage our cash flow borrowing, our cash flow needs next year. So let me back up a bit because I know that Trustee Stuffle has not been through this process before. So this is something that we generally do at the May meeting every single year. We talk about cash flow for the next fiscal year. So the fiscal year begins on July 1st, and we rely pretty much entirely on our dedicated property tax. And property tax revenues don't come in any significant way until mid-November. So we need to make it from July 1 to mid-November in terms of our expenses before we actually get much in the way of revenue. So that's our cash flow problem that we have every year. And every year we borrow money in July or August just to bridge that gap. In the past, we always did that, as several of the trustees know, by issuing tax anticipation notes or TANs, which are just short-term bonds that are issued with a promise that you'll repay them as soon as tax revenue comes in. Local governments, municipal governments use them all the time. And they are also tax exempt, like most government bonds, which typically meant that we could borrow at a lower rate than we could earn on the funds when we deposited them in the city investment pool. So that's what we call positive arbitrage. So in addition to just being necessary from a cash flow perspective, at least until very recently, it was also financially advantageous to issue TANs for the fund. We made money on it. We managed to make enough in positive arbitrage to cover the costs associated with issuing those TANs and then some, to have some extra. But beginning in fiscal year 22-23, that started to change. In that fiscal year, for the first time in anyone's memory, we had negative arbitrage, which obviously we didn't want. And then it happened again in fiscal year 23-24, and it was even worse. So at that point, I thought we need to do something different, because in those 2 years, we had to pay higher interest on the TANs than we could earn on the funds in the city investment pool. So that's the point at which I started looking into alternatives. And it's important to remember that there are 2 other costs associated with TANs. First, there's debt issuance costs, which are $50,000 to $80,000-ish for things like bond counsel and getting a rating out of Moody's. So there are costs associated with that. And the other cost associated with TANs is that you have to borrow all the money all at once upfront. So you're going to pay interest on that principal for a longer period of time and a larger amount of the principal. So those inherent costs of a TAN issue have to be factored in as well if we're comparing issuing TANs to some other borrowing alternative. The bottom line, is that we did not come out ahead with a TAN issue in fiscal year 22-23 or 23-24. So at that point, and most of this history is for Trustee Stoffel, exciting as it may be, this is exciting in the finance world. After extensive consultation with the City Debt Management Office, I'm grateful we do have an in-house debt management office, we decided to switch to a different borrowing strategy starting in the current fiscal year, in fiscal year 24-25, and we used an interfund loan to finance our cash flow. We borrowed, the four of you who were here last year may remember that we borrowed $45 million from the Parks Capital Improvement Fund. There are a couple of funds in the city that sit on enough cash that we could do that. So in essence, last year we decided to at least temporarily stop trying to make money on the bond market and just instead focus on minimizing our borrowing costs just like a regular borrower would do. So that is the background. And to cut to the chase, I'm recommending the same strategy for the next fiscal year for cash flow borrowing in fiscal year 25-26. And I'll talk a little more about why, but that is why the resolution before you approves a $50 million interfund loan. Last year it was 45, but on the same terms as last year, 0.1% or 10 basis points above the rate earned by the city investment pool, because we have to give this other fund a reason to lend us money, and we'll pay that on the outstanding balance each month. We should have enough money in ending fund balance this year to make it through July, so we likely won't make a draw on that loan until August. Last year we had to make a draw on the loan in July. So that is what I'm recommending. The resolution just says from a city fund, but it will likely be, and in fact it will be, the Parks Capital Improvement Fund again, since we worked with them last year, and they have the funds again this year. So before I open it up for questions and discussion, although just interrupt me if you have a question so you don't forget it, I want to talk through just a few more things to make sure you have all the information that you need. First, I want to talk a little bit about what changed over the last couple of years, and do we think it will change again? Second, let's kind of do a quick performance review on our decision to go with an interfund loan in the current fiscal year. Was that the right decision? And then third, what are our best projections for an interfund loan versus a tax anticipation note issue for next year? Maybe more detail than you guys want to know. And some of this a few of you have heard before. But first, let me just talk about what's changed in recent years. I mean, the short answer is chaos in the municipal bond market, coupled with unusually long and durable lags between interest rate markets. But anybody, I mean, you don't have to be a finance person to have seen this. It's just been one thing after another in the municipal bond market. I mean, first there was the pandemic and all of the uncertainty that created about government revenue sources, and then there were years of high inflation and years of not knowing if the Fed was going to cut or raise or keep interest rates the same at practically every open market committee meeting. And then recently, just as we've moved past that, there's been a lot of turmoil in response to fiscal proposals from the federal government, related to whether or not government bonds should remain tax exempt, which has been a real question, and tariffs and all of those good things. So the bottom line is that is a lot of uncertainty, and uncertainty creates risk, and the way markets respond to risk is to raise rates. So the result is that government bond rates have been unusually high, at least for long periods of time, and there has been an unusual amount of volatility. There's been a high degree of risk that those rates are going to spike at any given moment, and they have. Like in April, we had the highest and the lowest rates on the market since July 1, for probably obvious reasons related to the federal government's proposals. So all of that makes borrowing on the bond market very unappealing right now. Unfortunately, we have the other option of using an interfund loan. So again, I'm grateful for the partnership of the Debt Management Office and the other fund managers in the city who can make this happen. Will it change in the future? Probably, but I no longer have a good guess about when that might be. Like I said, every time we think we're moving past something, something else happens. What I do know is that taking advantage of our ability to borrow funds, to borrow money from another city fund, is the right strategy, in my strong opinion, for the next fiscal year. At some point, I still anticipate us going back to issuing TANs, but we are clearly not at that point yet. On the second question of how did we do on last year's interfund loan, that's a pretty easy thing to look at afterwards and see if you know, it's a gamble and it might not have turned out, and that wouldn't have made it a bad decision necessarily. But it did turn out. When you all authorized the interfund loan last year, we expected the interest costs associated with that loan to be about $618,000. And that was based on an interest rate of 4.1%, and then also borrowing the funds in 3 equal installments in July, August, and September. But in actuality, the interest rate was lower than 4.1%. It bounced around between 3.55 and 3.87 on the interfund loan. And we were able to structure our borrowing to draw less upfront and to make 4 draws instead of 3. So that is a nice thing about an interfund loan, is we can make real-time, cash decisions essentially, instead of trying to project them out for 4 months and borrow what we think we're going to need for 4 months. So our actual interest costs last year were $533,000 as compared to the $618,000 we thought they were going to be. So the interfund loan turned out to be cheaper than we expected when we asked you to authorize it last May. But that doesn't answer if it was cheaper than issuing TANs, but it was. We would have paid an interest rate of 3.95% if we had issued in mid-July, which is probably when we would have issued, as opposed to paying between 3.55 and 3.87%, because it's a variable rate on that interfund loan. So at no point did we pay more on the interfund loan than we would have paid with TANs. So we would have been in a negative arbitrage situation again. We would have paid more interest with TANs than we did with the interfund loan. And of course, on top of that, we would have had the other costs of TAN issuance, like I mentioned before. So there's no doubt that an interfund loan was the right strategy this year, which, just hopefully gives everyone a little more confidence that it's the right strategy again this year. So speaking about this year for fiscal year 25-26, because we will be borrowing the money in August, what are our projections? So you don't have anything in writing before you because we wanted to keep updating this, right up until the last minute. Our projected interest rate for an interfund loan right now is about 3.7%. That's based on the city economist's projected earnings on the city investment pool of 3.6%. So then we're adding those 10 basis points, or 0.1%, to that rate that we would be paying parks. So, but our projected TAN interest rate, and this is a serious wag of a projection, is 3.88% on the TANs. And that is something that was developed by the Debt Management Office, not by me. So they're projecting 3.88%. We're projecting on the interfund loan 3.7%. So it's not as far apart as it was last year, but odds are that the TAN rate will probably still be higher. We have to make a calculated, decision here that it could be lower. But our best guess is that it will be higher. And on top of that, that is a reason alone to go with the interfund loan, but as all this recent experience shows us, there is just a risk that the TAN rate will be much higher, whereas the interfund loan rate is going to be fairly consistent and constant, much more so than the TAN, the municipal bond market. There's so much volatility in the bond market right now that the range of projected rates, when we look at them last year, is more than 1%, more like 150 basis points is the range in our projections, which is kind of insane for a TAN market, which is usually very predictable and much tighter than that. So we're projecting interest rates in that 3% to 4.5% range and, landing on 3.88 as a median projection, but I mean, there's nothing to say it won't be 4.5%. And rates even outside of that range are certainly possible. And that is, I think, too much risk. And I don't mean risk in the sense that we can't afford it or we can't pay it, but too much risk that we're going to pay more than we would with the interfund loan. I do have some debt management charts on recent municipal rates. And actually, Julie, if you could hand one of these to Trustee Kramer. And Sam and Kim, if you guys want to look too, and then I'll just, oh, I'm not part of the meeting, so I can't pull it up on my screen. I haven't joined the meeting. And if I do that, it will, can I send you a link, Julie?
Absolutely.
And then can you pull it up? Let me, yeah, it's kind of in the bottom of that folder. Let me just go in. Cash flow, there we go. So I'll just send you a link, Julie. It's not, something that everybody desperately needs to see here, but I think it can give you a sense of how volatile the index that tracks most closely with the TAN rate has been, at least for really high credit-worthy institutions like us. All right, Julie, well, whenever you get that, maybe you can share it with everyone. Got it, okay. So basically what Julie's about to put on your screen is some information from debt management on current fiscal year TAN rates versus the interfund loan rate that we were charged in the current year. And I'll just wait for it to pop up. It's kind of small. Sorry about that. They were just sending it to me. But as you can see, at the time we needed the money in July, which is the last line of that table on top, the likely TAN rate was 3.95%. And since July, the likely TAN rate has dropped as low as 3.31%, but it's also risen as high as 4.19%. We're saying likely because, of course, we have to look at comparable folks that did issue TANs that have similar credit rating profiles and similar revenue sources and all those things. And when debt management prepared this for me, the rate was at about 3.88%, which is consistent with their projection for the next year. So again, you can see that it was better to go ahead and use the interfund loan last summer, and that would have been true for most of the last fiscal year if we had issued TANs at some later date in the year, which we couldn't do because we needed the cash. But what I really want for you to see is the graph at the bottom, which is an underlying index that tracks with our likely TAN rate. You have to add about 100 basis points, about 1%, to come up to the TAN rate that we use. But so it's the underlying index that debt management uses to track it. And you can see that it's pretty concerning from a risk perspective. It's just how volatile that underlying index has been since July of this year. And so that is just to give folks a sense of the volatility and my concerns about the uncertainty in that market, especially needing to make that decision now, as opposed to, say, 6 months from now. So just in conclusion, those are all of the reasons that I'm recommending that the board authorize an interfund loan rather than a TAN issue this year. And if you approve, we will ask council to authorize that loan in June because they will need to authorize it as well, since they have to authorize all interfund loans. And now I think I'll stop talking and let you ask me questions. Trustee Kramer.
Just as a point of information, Stacy, and you may have just answered this when you mentioned the 100 basis points. If we added in the dead costs to the TAN costs, is that what that would be? About 100 basis points more given our level of borrowing?
No, that is just because that underlying index, which I can't remember which index this is right now off the top of my head, that would be helpful, is just an index that tracks, it's kind of like when people talk about prime plus a certain percent with consumer debt. This is just an index that we know tracks really well with high quality TAN rates, but you still have to add about 1% to get to the market rate for TANs. And then I believe that then there would be, again, I didn't prepare this, but this is from debt management, that there would be debt issuance costs on top of that. And those are generally, I think this year we estimated they would be $65,000 or $70,000. I mean, so they're not huge, the issuance costs, but not enough to add 100 basis points.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Yes,
Kind
thanks.
of? Okay.
It's hard to, excuse me. It's hard to tell with the screen share, but I think Chair Hughes has his hand up.
Okay. Chair Hughes, how about you?
Thank you. I want to go back just for my lack of financial understanding. The resolution, as I understand, allows us to borrow up to 50 million. So the first question is, I don't believe it's intended that we borrow 50 million, for example, tomorrow, but we're doing it in draws, as you mentioned. And then the question becomes, when do you have enough information to say we need to draw 1, 2, 3, or 4 to eliminate this, to end this? How is that pretty concrete when you know it's going to be happening, obviously before January 31st?
Right. No, those are really good questions. And I think they highlight the difference between using an interfund loan, which I think I was telling somebody, think of that like if you had a HELOC on your home where you can just draw money out whenever you need it. I can only draw it out once a month in the case of the interfund loan, but we can draw it out as we need it, as opposed to a TAN issue, which is more like a cash out home mortgage where you add on some money and you get, $100,000 all right up front. So there is a lot less guesswork in an interfund loan because we can wait until we literally need the money. And in fact, we can even wait a week or two past that, as long as we just got to make sure we time everything with the closeout of the accounting period. And then we just tell accounting, yeah, we need you to hit that loan up for 5 million, 10 million. I mean, we could be very precise if we wanted to be. Last year, we realized that we only needed 5 million by August 1st. So we grabbed 5 million rather than the 10 million that actually I think the 11 point something million we had originally thought. So yes, and at that point it's very concrete. Like, our analyst looks at our cash every single day. And then we just project our costs forward for the next month and then make a draw based on a month's worth of estimating instead of a TAN issue where we have to estimate, 6 months in advance and do it all at once.
And as a follow-up, if I make the example of we drew 10 million, at that point, we're paying interest on 10 million, not the full 50, correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's
Perfect.
why it is another advantage of the interfund loan, so that we didn't pay interest on that the 45 million we borrowed last year. We did wind up borrowing the full 45 million, but we didn't hit that full 45 million mark until October 31st, I think. So that also held down our interest costs.
Great. Thanks, Stacy.
Trustee McLeod.
Yeah, it sounds like the chair asked one of my questions, so I only have a few. So I'm just going to summarize what I heard back, that we get that there's less volatility or very little volatility on the interfund transfer rate versus a lot of volatility on the TAN rate. Your recommendation last year to do the interfund transfer as opposed to TANs turned out to be the right one. That we don't have any fees other than the 10 basis points for the interfund loan. There's no, 50 to 65 basis points or whatever for the TAN fees, and that we only pay interest on the funds that we're actually using with interfund as opposed to the whole ball of wax with TANs. Is that correct?
Yep, that is all correct,
Okay, so
except
it's
that
oh, go ahead. I'm
one
sorry.
tiny point. Debt issuance costs are $50,000 to $65,000, not
Yeah.
50 to 65 basis points.
I missed it. Yeah.
But yeah, otherwise, no, that is a perfect summary and illustrates again how we have to make there has to be a decent amount of positive arbitrage to beat the interfund loan borrowing. And we don't have any reason to think there will be a decent amount of positive arbitrage or even any next year.
All right. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you, Trustee McLeod. Very nice summary. I guess I could have just said that at the beginning.
Yeah, I wouldn't have absorbed it if you would have said it that fast. So.
I cannot see if there's more questions because of the screen sharing.
Yeah,
So
we can stop the screen share now, Julie, I think.
okay. And I'm using the word arbitrage all this week.
Fun.
I will find ways.
We'll see what
Any
you come up
other-
with.
Yeah, it probably will be accurate. Any other discussion or questions? I'm not seeing any, but I want to make sure.
Oh,
We got a
Trustee
hand
Kramer. Yeah.
comment?
It's a wording question. The resolution seems to accomplish very much what you said. In the last complete paragraph, actually the last line, refers to the obligations of the FPDR Board of Trustees. I don't know how many resolutions I've voted for without noticing that language. There may have been, dozens, but I'm not thinking of this as an obligation of the Board of Trustees. I'm thinking of this as an obligation of FPDR itself.
I think your legal mind that's an interesting question. Julie, do you know why it's worded that way? I think it was that way when I got here. I think that it's always been worded that way, but maybe that's something we should look at for next year. I don't know how we normally word those things. So yeah, Julie, if we can look at that for consistency and how we're saying, whose obligation are, the financial administration of the plan and benefit payments, whose obligation is that? I mean, ultimately, it is the city of Portland's obligation because we're a fiduciary fund of the city of Portland.
Franco, any side comment from there?
Well, I can see the question. I guess it just hadn't come up in all these years. But yeah, we can look at it for the future and see if maybe saying the fund or the city of Portland or something else might be more appropriate. 'Cause I could see the concern, frankly.
I never noticed it, but I kind of agree.
No, it's a good catch. Appreciate it.
Is this something we want to change and vote on an amended?
I'd defer to Franco for that.
Geez. I mean, on the one hand, it's easy for me to say, don't worry about it. But because I suspect that it's been this way for time immemorial, but I don't know that for a fact as I'm sitting here today. So I don't see what it would hurt to change that wording to say the City of Portland Fire and Police Disability and Retirement Fund.
Mm-hmm.
I'll make a motion that we change the Board of Trustees language, the last 3 words to fund.
I'll second that.
And then how does that look, Julie, if we change that? Does it read okay? Yeah, why don't you share your screen and show with the change, just so everyone can see it.
Just at the very end, FPDR.
Can that be blown up a little bit? I'm sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay.
To meet the obligations of the FPDR fund instead of Board of Trustees.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. I think there was a second for that, correct? Okay.
Yes, there was.
Right?
So all in favor of that change of language, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
And can we adopt this resolution with that change today, or do we need to?
As amended.
Yes, as amended.
Yep. And now you can take a second vote to adopt the resolution as amended. Yes.
I'm going to say aye to the first part. And then, so now I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution 559 as amended. For clarity, the amendment got rid of FPDR Board of Trustees and replaced it with FPDR Fund in the last paragraph. And that is up for vote.
I'll second that motion.
And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Right. Thank you very
Okay.
much, board, and feel free to ask me any additional questions if any come to mind later on.
Great. Thank you, Stacy. It was a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
So exciting.
Okay, action item number 2 is resolution 560, the continued discussion and result of the OAH contract extension. And I'm pretty sure this one's Sam.
Yes, definitely. This is me. So we're talking about Resolution 560 OAH contract extension. As we previously discussed, the existing intergovernmental agreement between the Office of Administrative Hearings and FPDR is set to expire June 30, 2026. We're requesting your approval of Resolution 560, which would allow me to negotiate an amendment to the existing IGA with OAH, extending the IGA for additional 4 years to June 30, 2029. As referenced, the IGA started on July 1, 2017. The amendment will increase the not-to-exceed amount by $1,075,000 up to a total of $2 million for the entire period of 2017 through 2029. This is a big amount of money. So Stacy, Julie Hall, and I reviewed all the OAH invoices since 2017, and we found the following trends. Hourly rates for the OAH, ALJs, and support staff has risen each year, and the percentage increase has been higher over the last couple of years, probably pretty high, I think in the double digits. Oregon statutes and administrative rules set the rates, so they're not negotiable with us, and we anticipate the rates will increase over the next 4 years. In addition to this, we found that they are getting more purposeful in charging support staff fees. I think they tended to have a pool of it, and they started to break that pool out to each, how much they're spending for each client with us. So that also added some increases. The present rates that we have today, Julie, do you remember what they are? Julie looked that up real quick. They are reasonable. They're even lower than we would expect for legal services. When we go out and renew the legal contract for support for the FPDR Board of Trustees, that's going to probably be about $200 an hour higher than what the state of Oregon is charging us for their time with the ALJs with us. So we feel that the rates are in the acceptable range, and I would doubt if we went out to find somebody else, the rates would be cheaper than what the state of Oregon is charging us for that. And so here are the rates down at the bottom of the picture of the ALJ. What was that? I can't read from this distance.
Charged.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a pretty low amount for an attorney's time. So again, if we went ahead and created our own review committee or review process and hired judges, we would expect to see costs around $500 or higher per hour. So this is, it's a good deal. But and what also we had, as we discussed last time, is that we've had several complex denials over the last year or so, and those require a lot of review time by the ALJ and the appellate panels. So those are more expensive claims to review, keeping our fingers crossed that that's more of a blip than it is the standard. But as with all disability claims, you cannot predict how many claims you get, how difficult those claims will be, and how many people will appeal. And Kim will give you more information on the appeals process with it. So it is a high amount, but based on what we did and the time we spent going through all the invoices and the trends out there, this is a reasonable amount of money. And again, I think it would cost us more if we went out and created our own review system with that. Do you have any questions on that?
Sam, I have a comment. If you can go to your amendment, the draft.
Resolution.
Give me a shout when you can see that. The draft agreement, sorry. Second page, okay, so in section 1A, effective date, you are leaving June 30th and going to June 30th of 2029 in bold. However, in consideration, this draft might cause the other side confusion because the 2 million is not in bold and the expiring 1075 is in bold.
Okay. You get that, Julie? We can clean that up. Okay. No, I can see that.
And I had no other comments. It's a valuable agreement, and those prices are actually very good, even though they have increased.
And we floated a draft, and we'll go see what draft we sent them. If we need to update that, Julie, we will do what,
Does everybody else have this draft in their materials that were sent out?
No, my apologies. Those didn't make it in the board materials. They are online,
Okay.
and I can forward one to everyone after the meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sam, I think you said you just floated it to them. We have until the end of June.
Mhm.
Are we prepared for the worst case scenario where they want to extend negotiations or not accept? Do you see anything coming where this would not be accepted? And what is our backup plan?
It's a good question, because we approved the last amendment to bring us up to speed, to give us enough funds to go through this June. Interesting is that they gave us verbal confirmation that it's a go-ahead, and then now we're waiting for somebody to ink it, and they've sat on it for 2 months and haven't inked it yet. And we don't know why, so I'm raising that up. I may even see if I can get Mike Jordan or somebody else a little bit higher stake than I am to come in and try to push them. So that's my task for next week. They've seen it, and we've got, idea at the OAH level, they seem to be okay with it. But again, this is the state bureaucracy that you got to go up through. So yes, is there a chance that we won't be covered? I don't think they will refuse to do it. It's just how long it takes in their bureaucracy to get it through. What we've done with them so far on this last amendment to pay through June, we've got their bills, and we said, we've got the money sitting here, we just need your signature. And that hasn't motivated them to sign yet, so they haven't been paid for a couple months. So I think it's a valid question, and that's something we'll look at and push on them, and I will raise that higher up in the city to do.
And this is with the Oregon Department of Justice, not waiting for signature at the federal level, correct?
We have both, OAH has to one signature, and the Department of Justice has to have another signature on it.
Okay.
So I think we're going through some bureaucracy, and it doesn't help we're in a legislative session too, which has got a lot of people looking different directions.
But there's no federal sign off to
Yeah.
answer the trustee's question.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Trustee McLaury's hand is up.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So just for a point of clarification, and I may have misheard you, Sam, but it sounded early on you were talking, you said that this IGA will terminate June 30th, 2026. So if that's the case, we can just amend that in the meeting notes when they come out next meeting. My only point is, I understand up to 2 million is not to exceed, so it would be used as needed. It is a much higher number than I was expecting from this from our previous discussions of the OAH budget. I don't foresee either of them denying the this IGA. So, and I don't see any particularly other great plan B, to your point, Trustee Hughes. And you can correct me, Sam, if I'm wrong. I do believe you were talking about a smaller number, and then should the administration need to come to the board to raise it, we could do that. All that being said, this amount seems fine because it's not going to be spent unless it's needed.
Correct.
So that's just my point to reiterate. It's just a much higher price point than I was expecting from this resolution.
No, I understand that, and Kyle, we had discussed is, do we put it at a lower price point and then look to up it mid IGA, mid thing? You can see the problem we're having right now, getting everybody the right signatures. I don't want to get caught up in that again with it. So we tried to do a good estimate that would take us out 4 more years on it, just try to avoid that issue that's happening. And as far as the plan B, you know, should they not go for the next one? There's no reason why they should not. We've talked to the OAH. They themselves, the people that are going to do the workforce, have no issue with it. And this isn't costing the state anything. This is where they're getting money from a third party to do it. So there isn't any, we're going to compensate them the way they want to be compensated. So I just think we're in a bureaucratic nightmare, and I'm just hoping that we can get through it. And I'm going to pull out some higher guns here over the next couple of weeks to see if I can push these people the right way.
Franco has a hand up.
Yeah, I just had a quick point of clarification, and it might have just been me not being able to see the screen very well. It looked like there were maybe 3 administrative law judge rates broken out on that screen. And I just want to point out that the OAH provides 5. I thought there was a graph that had 3 ALJs and then like a staff
Right
there. And then does this reflect that there's actually 5 administrative law judges?
This is actually a page from the entire state of Oregon document for their price list of goods and services, and they
Okay.
only had 3. I have noticed from our billings that we are being we're paying for ALJ 3. So if there's a 4 and a 5, maybe I don't know.
No. I didn't mean classifications. I meant there's 3 that occupy the appellate panel, which has terms that are required by charter and that are staggered, right?
Right.
That includes their presiding ALJ, the head ALJ of all, you know, however many hundreds they have statewide, and then one who had been a hearing level ALJ over at FPDR claims and other types of decisions for years, and then a third who's actually been on the panel, I think since around 2008 or so. So 3 extremely experienced ALJs on the panel. And then there are 2 who are also both senior ALJs who hear the actual hearings and issue the final orders that are in some cases appealable to the panel. So I just wanted the board to be clear that there, because when I saw this, I thought they were saying 3 ALJs, but there are in effect 5, and they may all be in that Judge 3 classification. It wouldn't surprise me because they're all very experienced.
Chair Hughes has his hand up.
Just a informational comment, I guess. I do believe I've heard, Sam, you might know, or Franco, IGAs now need mayoral approval. Did I
Yes.
hear that right?
Correct.
You're all set for that?
That's what I was going to tell everybody here at the end of this, is once you approve it, then I take it to the mayor. I've already informed my deputy city administrator of what's happening, and then he will champion on up the chain as the new approval requirements say that has to happen.
Great. It moves pretty fast from what I've heard. So.
Yep. Tom?
I take the point that Sam, you and Kyle both made about, you know, the absence of a viable plan B. Notwithstanding that, I have this question for you, which may also be a question for Kim, and in a way for Kyle and Tommy. What do we think of the quality and timeliness of the OAH's work to the extent we're able to judge?
They do meet the set standards that are in the charter and the administrative rules that we have for it. A lot of the timeliness is often dependent upon the attorneys that are involved with it, because the attorney's going to ask for extensions and do different things. So they tend to, I think in my mind, do more of the driving of the timeliness. But once it comes up the time for them to make decisions, they have 30 or 60 days or a certain amount of time. They are very good at meeting those timelines.
From my limited experience, I would say I've had the same experience. I would agree.
And I mean, and I can say, having worked through that system since late 2007 or so, I have not observed the OAH violate any deadline that it has. And there are certain instances where the judges have the discretion to decide the timelines for certain things, and like the appellate panel, they just issue the decision when they can. The timeline doesn't exist, but it's somewhat of a predictable number of months oftentimes. But I can say just firsthand, I haven't seen where an order was due and that it was late even by a day.
And OAH, again, provides the services to the entire state of Oregon, the state government of Oregon, and some other municipalities and organizations that contract with them like we do. And they stay on top of everything they do. We've been impressed with the quality of the decisions they have with it. We like the appellate review because that goes into more depth. You have 3 different judges, and Kim will talk about how we've used some of their decisions to help us make future claim decisions.
To the extent the quality can be evaluated, I would just point to what do the reviewing courts, like the Multnomah County Circuit Court, Oregon Court of Appeals, Oregon Supreme Court, what do they do in response to these decisions? And what we're not seeing is any sort of trend that they're overturning them. Now, of course, that has happened over the last 18 or so years. But you would expect that in a system that you're going to have varied results from time to time. But there is not there's no trend of reversal that would suggest that the other judges are disagreeing with the interpretation of law that the OAH judges are setting forth.
Any other questions? Okay.
Chair Hughes, if you would entertain a motion, I would move that we adopt resolution number 560 as drafted.
I will second that. And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that motion is passed. You're 2 for 2, Sam.
Hey, thank you.
Okay, we are moving to a pretty healthy section of information items. OAH claim outcomes is first. And I think is that Kim?
Yes, let's see.
Yep.
I think I'm on here now. Great. Well, good afternoon, trustees. Kimberly Mitchell, FPDR Disability Claims Manager. And I am presenting this information today in response to Trustee McLaury's request for information on OAH outcomes. So what we've done here is reviewed 8 years of data to provide the information that I'm sharing today. And this funnel is kind of telling in and of itself, but I'll direct you right now to what I want to talk about first, and that is that we do approve the majority of FPDR claims that we receive. We're here to benefit to provide benefits to our members, evaluate the claims against the criteria we've established by law on our charter, and 92% of the claims that are filed are approved. When we look at the claim approval numbers, the data here is just slight. You might not even notice it, but they're slightly different from the information we shared during the annual State of FPDR presentation in a few ways. The data we shared during the State of FPDR presentation are claims received and administered that fiscal year. We don't include information about recurrence claims, which are aggravation claims. A member has an approved claim that is worse. And they don't include post-retirement claims. And these are claims for members who have retired and have to go back for treatment. And we process those. So these numbers represent all of the claims accepted and denied in this 8-year period that we've reviewed. But the majority of the claims represented here are new claims. The denial numbers here also represent. The majority of claims are new claims, but they are also denials for recurrence and post-retirement medical benefit claims. So having that context, the numbers show here that over this 8-year period, we issued 219 denials. Most of the denials were issued on initial claims, and like I said, a few for post-retirement. And 88 of the 219 denials that were issued were appealed. Now this, at the time of appeal, when the member notifies us that they want to appeal the FPDR decision, this is where OAH gets involved in the process. We send upon receipt of the claim appeal notice, we send that information over to OAH. And at that time, they set up a file so that they can track the claim and begin to set it up in anticipation of hearing. They are reaching out to both parties, the member's representative, our city attorney, Franco Luchin, to set up a pre-hearing conference. And from there, they establish the timelines for the hearing. And at that point, schedules and things like that come into play, and requests for postponements or other things that are delayed that go on in that process can occur during that time. So once they're involved, they're charging us a fee for their services. So of the 88 claims that were appealed, 58 were withdrawn by the member and 8 by FPDR. So the claim withdrawals, even on appeal, are similar to what we see upon claim filing. Basically, information. The appeals process continues to be an information gathering process, and either party can get information during that process to support or deny their claim. So if a member appeals a claim for benefits and they've gotten additional information, maybe from their provider through their attorney, that claim is not compensable, they're going to withdraw the claim for benefits, and that ends OAH's involvement in the claim. They will issue a dismissal order, and we are done with them at that point. So for the claims that proceed, then, and just to say also just that the withdrawals themselves can occur at the various stages of appeal process. They can occur before a final order was issued. They can occur after a final order was appealed, and they're going on to the next level of appeal. Because these various stages of the process reveal information, the parties have any time before the process is final to withdraw their claim or withdraw the appeal process. So of the 88 claims that were appealed, 30 went to hearing and received a final order. So 27 of the 30 that were appealed, FPDR's denials were affirmed, and they are affirmed at various stages as well. They can be, most of them are affirmed at the initial level where the ALJ is looking at it, but they can also be affirmed at the appellate review board level and higher. So we have 90% of the claims that went to hearing, the FPDR denials were affirmed. 3 or 7% of them were reversed. And a question earlier about the quality of the OAH work came up. We have really appreciated the orders that have been issued at every level, either by the ALJ or especially at the appellate review board, because they give a more in-depth analysis of the claim. But we use that information as instruction. We have had various issues come up on claim denial, and when we get an ALJ or ARB decision that really changes for us the course of how we look at our rules, we use that when we are applying our analysis of future claims. So they are very informative and instructional for us. So we think it's critically important that we understand the application of our rules, and they help in that regard. We do have a rigorous internal review process before the denial is issued. We provided some trustee training on that in the past, but basically, once the analyst has done their initial workup and review of claim and said, no, this doesn't appear to be service-connected, then I review the claim as well from scratch. I look at everything. I look at their analysis, their questions, and then I pass that on to Sam, who also looks at it. So the denials that are issued are small in number, but we want to make sure that when they are not entitled to the benefit, that we have analyzed it very thoroughly. We also seek consult from Franco, the city attorney's office, at various stages of our claims process, so that we make sure that if we're going to issue this denial, it is really because, from our assessment, the member wasn't entitled to that benefit. So I also would say that ideally our denial shouldn't be reversed, because if the majority of them were reversed, it would, to me, suggest that maybe we're not applying the rules and that the way we would like. So I think that the fact that 90% of them over this time period have been affirmed is also a suggestion in support of good analyst work and legal consultation in that at the outset. Any questions?
Kim, I had a question / comment, Ms. Patrick. I think that's a really good statement to say that if you looked at your numbers and said we had 3 denials of FPDR reversed by the OAH group all the way down, to take that as a learning moment. The reality is you can run into very novel and new situations where there isn't an answer until you actually have a ruling to say, now we understand how we are supposed to apply our own rules. That can happen. So I was happy to
Yes.
hear the way you tackle that. The question became, I think I heard you say, I don't know if you have any numbers off the top of your head, if we make a denial, it goes through our process, we can also withdraw during this process too, just like the other side can. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. And I think we do have that. Let me see if I've gotten here. Yeah, we withdrew 8 claims over this time
Okay.
period. Yes, so we do look at them and withdraw if necessary.
And that 8 would be included in the 218, 219 denial?
Yes.
Okay. So both sides are working through this process, deciding, oh, we shouldn't be here, either side. So,
Correct.
thank you.
Correct.
And I'd like to clarify that because that was one of my questions as well when you said that, if you don't mind. First of all, thank you for getting the information together. I appreciate that. So that would be a claim that was originally denied after, and then more internal investigations then reverse it, and it was then accepted. Just so I'm clear on that, that's something that's happened 8 times over the past 8 years?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm assuming also, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Kim, these are exclusively disability claims, or is that just all across disability and or pension benefits that are being appealed?
Good question. This is disability claims.
Thank you.
Franco?
Oh, Trustee McLowry addressed part of what I was going to offer, which was just that the quote unquote, the withdrawal by FPDR post denial does in effect become an approval of the claim. And I had one other thing that has now escaped me, but to the chair's point about sometimes there just isn't an answer and the hearing is the way to answer it. That is precisely how these rules were developed in 2000, I don't know, 7 through 2009, somewhere in that time period. You'll find minutes of the board where they were kind of trying to figure out how much specificity to give certain parts of, let's say, the hearing rules, for example. And there would have been, and there were some trustees who would say, well, let's just leave that for the OAH itself to address. And that's really what has happened. I mean, the hearings, the one thing that, there's obviously this expense in hearing cases, but the part of the value that the city gets and the membership as well is that the OAH particularly the final order on appeal, so the order that the appellate panel would render, are treated within OAH as precedential, so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time an issue comes up that might not be squarely addressed by other case law, the administrative rules, or the charter. Or in some instances, the workers' comp statute when that applies. And so that is, you have your finger on the pulse there in terms of there are open questions that really they're just good faith disagreements that the parties need a judge to resolve.
That was much better said than how I got it out, Franco. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that too. That makes a lot of sense. I'm afraid I have to circle back one more time if you don't mind, Kim, because I'm just absorbing some of that information. In regards to those 8 FPDR withdrawals, if somebody, I'm thinking about my membership. If somebody gets a denial and they think that they may want to have it more investigated, is the appropriate procedure to file an appeal, or can they just come to you and start getting more of information? What would be the best way for a member to avail themselves of further investigation, I guess?
That's a good question, and they should file an appeal. That preserves their rights. Once they've filed and everything is on record, if there's a withdrawal that is needed, so be it. But we would never want a member to, forget to call us or something if they've had, a denial that they've had a question about. And so I would always say, file the appeal. If it needs to be withdrawn later, do that. But we don't want anybody to lose their rights in this process by waiting.
Thank you.
Yes.
Kim, just looking at gross numbers, it looks like over this 8-year period, just taking the number of claims approved and the 219 claims denied, we approved 92.5% of claims and
Correct.
denied 7.5%. Do those percentages strike you one way or the other?
If we compared
terms of
ourselves to
gross numbers.
industry standard, yes, they're quite low compared to the workers' compensation industry. They are pretty consistent with our internal numbers over the years. We do have a low denial rate of our claims. And I think usually when we report it to state of FPDR, we go back 10 years, but having looked at this even more broadly than today, we do have a lower denial rate.
Should we be concerned about this? Is that something that suggests a closer look, or no? Do you think that's just that our members are that conscientious and the cases are that clear?
Yeah, I think that they are heavily reviewed. Whether they are approved or denied, they're heavily reviewed. And these injuries in a line of duty are evaluated. Any claim that is not clearly seen as in the course and scope of employment by our analyst at the first level review come to me, even on approved claims. So they are very thoroughly reviewed.
And I'll add into that too is we know our members and our members know their job. And so we can very well say, hey, they can or cannot do it. They're disabled or not disabled. So that's having a small group of people where the jobs are well defined and we know them extremely well to do that. When you get into larger, employers that have, like City Risk, they have to know everything across the city, and they may not know all those jobs as well as we know the police and fire jobs. So you may get some that are denied. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes in the private sector, they tend to drift to deny more claims than we would feel is appropriate to deny. We deny when we know the claim should be denied. We try to avoid that gray area, so we do the investigation, try to push that claim one way or another, approve it or deny it.
Thank you, Sam. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
Kim. FPDR summary of expenditures.
All right, that is me again, and I'm realizing I never said for the record that I'm Stacy Jones, the Pension and Finance Manager and Deputy Director. I will just mention, really follow up on two things that the board asked about at our March meeting for the expenditure report, and then see if there are additional questions. In March, both trustees Kramer and McLeod asked about PERS contributions because we had only reimbursed fire and police for Q1 contributions by the end of January. So that would be actual PERS expenses for July through September. And as we clarified back then, those PERS contributions are being sent into PERS. Those are sent in automatically as part of the city's payroll process. But the reimbursement back to the general fund was lagging. And you can see if you look at, let me see, where are we? So if you look at internal, the line, I know it's really small on your screen, but internal materials and services, you'll see FPDR 3 pension contributions are the second item in that category. And if you look across, you'll see that we're all caught up with PERS contributions at this point. What happened was the Community Safety Division, which administers this for police and fire, they had a delay getting their approved. We had approved the Q2 reimbursements, but they had a delay getting them entered into the city's enterprise software. I'm not sure why, but they did. They did take care of it once our analysts contacted them. And then you can see that the Q2 reimbursements, those went through in February, and then Q3 was paid in April. So we're caught up now, which I know makes the general fund managers happy, although it reduces our interest earning. But of course, that's not, we want to pay that money as soon as they get us the billings. So we are still doing that, caught up there. And then the other thing is disability spending. I remember Trustee McLeod asked about disability spending in March, just noting that it was fairly low compared to budget. And we are now 83% of the way through the year, and we've spent about 60% of the disability budget. And when we talked about this back in March, we were 58% of the way through the year and had spent about 38% of the budget. So basically, that pattern has continued. Of low disability benefit spending or tracking significantly under budget. But as I said in March, I just want to reiterate that this is not completely outside the normal range for disability benefit spending when you look at it over a long period of time, over 10 to 15 years. It's been several years since we had this low of disability spending, but it has happened before. And as I mentioned, it's just the most enigmatic, volatile part of our budget. Fortunately, it's a much smaller number than, say, the pension budget, which thankfully is more predictable, or at least somewhat more predictable. So I did just want to touch back on those two things since those came up in March, and then see if there are other questions. Yes, Trustee Kramer.
Stacy, I have two questions. One's very small items, the return to work and light duty. Is it unusual that it doesn't appear that we've had to spend anything for that? Maybe that's a Kim question.
Well, I think in terms of the billing, actually, I guess, Kim, you might be the best person to speak to that because those are the transitional duty reports, and I think you had a new process for reviewing them. I think that those payments just went in. This only shows through April, Kim, and I believe that at least 2 quarters have been paid in May now, but
Yes.
I don't know if you.
I don't know how much to say, but in terms of services, they are using them, so we do expect more bills from the bureaus for placement into transitional duty. We haven't received them yet, and the ones that we just received haven't been reviewed yet.
We
Does
did,
that help?
yeah, and I know we just got like Q3 billings from them just recently for light duty, or transitional duty, as you guys refer to it more properly, because Asha was on vacation, and so I had to open them up and send them on to you. But I know that there had been some delays earlier in the year, and I think folks were revisiting their process for reviewing those. But it's also not unusual for the bureaus to not get around to sending them to us. Again, the Community Safety Division, I think, struggles to get the data on that to send to us. And so it takes them a while to gather it, and it's a smaller amount of money, so they're not as concerned about it. They're very concerned that we get it paid by the end of the fiscal year, but.
Yes.
And it's a significantly more extensive review on our side. For PERS contributions, it's one, our lead financial analyst going through work done by kind of one of her counterparts in the Community Safety Division. It's pretty straightforward, but on the disability side, they have to review both, were those approved for people approved for transitional duty, and are those hours and days that they were approved for transitional duty?
And we're making sure that the time being requested, we have authorization from the medical provider, so it's a review of the claim documents as well. So it's quite an intense review
Yeah.
on our end, yeah.
Whereas, you know, we can turn around a PERS contribution billing in a couple of days. It usually is going to take a couple of weeks at least to turn around, a light duty, a transitional duty. And then we have to review the pay rates too.
Yes.
To make sure they're right.
One more.
Yeah, of course.
We set aside like a $15 million contingency fund, and we haven't tapped it. I think we talked about this back when we established the budget. Should we be surprised by that? Are you surprised by it?
No, we rarely dip into contingency. I'm trying to think. I think we did last year or the year before. I don't know if any of the trustees remember if we, but it's pretty rare that we need to dip into it. We always have it there because, again, part of the problem of living in your own fund is you got to pay for your own money. It's kind of like, you know, when your parents cut you off or something. The general fund is not going to front us any money. I can't even imagine making that phone call. So we just want to make sure we're prepared for whatever contingency may happen. So a lot of that is just kind of the same way we all might keep a couple extra $1,000 in our checking account to make sure we don't overspend. But also there is a lot of uncertainty, especially around labor contracts and retirement timing and death timing and property tax estimates. And, you know, small changes in property tax assumptions can turn into big revenue shortfalls. Massive retirement waves can turn into big expenditures. Unexpected things in labor contracts can make all of our benefits go up. So, you know, that 15 million is... we're usually aiming to have about 7% of fund expenditures in our, which is lower than you'd find in most funds. Most funds hold on to 10% for contingency. So we're more predictable than a lot of operations, but we still have plenty of unpredictability. That's a long-winded answer to your question. I always enjoy your questions. I'm going to be disappointed if there's ever a day when you don't have them, so you're going to have to like pour through them. Are there other questions about expenditures?
City budget updates. Jump
Oh,
down.
yeah, you want me to just
While
jump?
you're up here.
Yeah,
just
so I don't
jump
have to
down.
keep going and coming back. So the budget, I mean, if there's anything more chaotic than the municipal bond market, it's the city of Portland's budget. Fortunately, we're insulated from most of that turmoil. But that said, this year we have had substantial enough changes since you adopted the budget at the January meeting in the fiscal year 25-26 budget that will begin on July 1st that you all adopted in January. We've had several changes. And so I will be this year asking the board to formally amend the budget in July or September. If we have a meeting in July, if not, then you can do it in September, which I haven't done in many years, because I think that there are significant enough changes that the board needs to adopt amendments as the formal approvers of our budget. So let me just talk through a couple of those changes. First, we realized that we need to increase the pension budget by about $4.9 million. So that's an increase from the $163.2 million approved by the board in January up to about $168.1 million. And that is mostly because the initial starting pensions for new retirees in November, and you'll remember we had bucket loads of them, they were significantly higher than we projected last fall. I wish we'd taken one more quick look at that before we sent all the budget stuff through, but we had to send that through in January. But between unusually high cost of living adjustments, salary increases on top of COLA at fire, and the new premium pays at police, pay has just grown a lot in the last couple of years, and our model is backward looking, at least over the last year or two, for estimating those initial pensions, and it just failed to account for that much growth. So our projected initial pensions for all those November retirees were significantly higher than we had built into our model, and that rippled through future retirees as well, because we build from there for estimating future starting pensions. And so we wanted just to be a little more comfortable, go in and increase that pension budget. by almost $5 million. It's not huge as a percentage. I mean, there are some other minor things contributing to that, like a bit lower mortality, a bit more retirees than we expected this past spring. But the major contributor was just that those pensions are much higher than we had projected. So we won't get caught, caught off guard by that again in the future. But almost at the same time we were realizing that problem, actually a little before that, fortuitously, we got some unexpected additional property tax revenue on January 31st. It's like the property tax gods knew we needed it. And that is because I wonder, like a property tax god, I'm imagining the temple people would build to the property tax god. 3 urban renewal areas reach their maximum indebtedness, which means they have to return property taxes to the general rolls. And that wasn't totally unexpected, but the amount of indebtedness they had to return was unexpected. So that, kicked some money out to the general fund, and it kicked out a little over $2 million to us. A few other little changes in property tax collections. Revenues are prior year delinquent taxes have been coming in really well. People are paying their delinquent taxes. So we're going to be able to increase our beginning fund balance next year by about $4 million. So that will cover most of that pension budget increase. And then the last thing I wanted to mention now is that we have agreed to reduce the budget for PERS contributions for police next year by $1.5 million. And you may remember that we were having ongoing debates with police about overtime spending and fire as well. Fire was able to show better evidence of overtime reductions going into budget negotiations. Police needed some more time, but now that we have seen that overtime spending really is reining back in, we felt comfortable doing what they wanted to do, which is dropping that budget by $1.5 million. So now that we've seen that evidence, we have told them that we would be amenable to that. Again, all of these things, should they not turn out as anticipated, can be fixed during the year through supplemental budget changes and things like that. But we just want to get it as right as we can before we adopt everything. And then there are some other changes that I would consider minor that kind of happen every year, mostly in places where our budget intersects with other departments, like the mayor made some budget cuts at printing and distribution and at Bureau of Technology Services, and that will lower our costs. But those are all really quite minor. And we don't know 100% how those things will shake out because council has not yet adopted the budget. So, but that is where things stand now. And I just didn't want anyone to be caught off guard if you heard about any of those things. So I want to give the board a heads up and then just say, once we have final numbers, I'll ask for some budget amendments in either July or September. Are there questions about those?
No. Thanks for walking through those.
Yeah.
All right. If you have questions later on, as always, email or call.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. Sam, legislative update, does that make sense?
Yes, legislative update. We are in the 2025 long legislative session, which will end on June 29th, but probably 90% of the work has been done by now. They had over 3,500 bills introduced, which was a high amount this year. I expected to be kept busy monitoring them all. And so I monitored numerous bills. They included PERS, workers' comp, public meetings, public records, other types of things. But most of the bills that sort of piqued my interest were either died in a committee so far or were significantly altered by amendments to remove what caught my eye on those amendments. So pretty much that's boring as to what we're going through. We may see some public records or public meeting things, but they will be minor and not much of an impact here. Maybe 1 or 2 little things on PERS that could impact our PERS premium rates, but it's really minor. So this is pretty uneventful for a long session. Usually I'm pretty busy. I did go and testify at MLAC, the Management Labor Advisory Council. It was on a workers' compensation thing to which we were going to have SAFE wanted to do their own managed care organization, which I thought would negatively impact us because it could potentially chase 2 or 3 of our MCOs out of the market. I voiced that to them, and there were some other issues with that bill, so SAFE pulled it. out, which was good because there were some people concerned that SAFE was making a power grab by not only doing the insurance part, but by controlling the medical part. So they pulled it. So that was good. I think they did that. And again, nothing else big. It's pretty mundane session, surprisingly, for a large session. I'll just jump into the rest of the rest of the FPDR updates. So labor negotiations, I told you that CPPW, City of Portland Professional Workers Union, they were going through negotiations. They had voted in favor of a strike, but had not declared a strike. And then all of a sudden, about a week ago, they came to a tentative agreement with the city. So all that went away, which is very good because this would have taken all the financial people, the analyst level people. It would have taken 9 people out of our bureau. Over half could potentially have been on strike. And it's that same ripple effect through quite a few areas in the city. So that was very good that that didn't go through. So celebrating that. One thing I wanted to do is go through organizational changes. I don't know how close you've been monitoring all the budget stuff coming out of the city. There's been quite a few things that have introduced through the news organizations, and the mayor's put out some stuff. So I try to talk to you because, they have to come up with about $95 million in budget cuts this year to do a balanced budget. And so part of what they did is to reorganize the area, and I'll pull up a chart here. I'm going to show you how the city organization has changed or will change. And so they asked all bureaus and areas in the city to reduce their budgets by 5 to 8%. That did not apply to FPDR, but it applied to most everybody we worked with. There are several other bureaus that are based on fees, is where they get their funds rather than the general fund. That's water, sewer, permitting. Transportation's a mix of 2 things. They also were under budget pressure, 1, because their income sources were low, or 2, they were given a directive that they couldn't raise rates by more than, I think, initially 5%. They may have upped that up. I think they may have upped that by a percentage or 2 now. So in order to meet that, they're going to have to restructure some of the bureaus and some of the service areas, try to find places where they could release positions. And I think at this point, they had 53 to 75 in there. I keep seeing numbers floating different ways of positions that are being eliminated, and probably about a half to 2/3 are actual people being let go in other bureaus across the city. So that's all an attempt to work toward getting that $95 million shortfall. We won't know the extent of the budget cuts until the council approves the budget in June, so we still have another month to go. And they had a big meeting here last week where they approved a budget but made a lot of different changes and stuff to it in areas to cut. So I want to go through here and show you the org chart, just give you a feel for what the change is. If I can share this with you. There we go, finally. This is the org chart that I shared with you probably 6-7 months ago. With it, you can see here in the area blue, you have the city administrator, which is a new position, and then the city administrator had an assistant city administrator and a few other people that reported to them. Then you had see the 6 service areas, budget and finances where FPDR is, at least in this model. And then you have the other areas here. So they had Public Works, Vibrant Communities is a name for mostly Parks and Rec, but there were a lot of other programs that were rolled into that one. Public Safety, pretty straightforward, police, fire, 911, as well as emergency management. And then you have Bureau of Planning, Sustainability and Housing, and Community and Economic Development. And city operations is a lot of the internal parts of the city that keep the city running, so therefore the rest of the bureaus can do their job here. We have HR, fleet, technology services, et cetera. Trying to get this to move. Okay, so here's the new organization that's going to be effective July 1. You have the city administrator here up in the middle. They still have this assistant city administrator and a chief financial officer. And if you notice, there's only 4 service areas here. You see the finance and budget, which is an FPDR, and it basically has been split into the chief financial officer area. And then we were moved over here on the left-hand side to city operations. You had Parks and Recreation was pulled into Public Works, so there, and then another area was done. So this is an area to streamline different areas and get like areas together again, trying to get some efficiencies between them, remove some of the redundant positions. Now, I will tell you here with the budget last week, they approved eliminating the assistant city administrator. So that box won't be on there going forward. And so all those under that will report directly to the city administrator. I think they're trying to take some of the stuff off the city administrator's work assignments but now they've added them back into it. So that's what they've done there. Let's see if I can pull my notes up and catch up where I am. And the next way they're looking for savings, because most of the savings you see by the organization structure changes are going to be, I'm not coming up here with that. Yeah, most of the ones you're seeing here you're going to see a lot of the savings from this completed by July 1. Some of them may take a little longer to do. But then the next phase that they're going through right now and is this bar in the middle. You see here, that bar in the middle means that what they're going to do is look at certain services that right now are scattered in all the different bureaus and service areas. And they're going to say, look, we're going to pull those back under like HR. A lot of bureaus have their own mini HR areas. What they're going to do is to say, okay, how many different HR people do we need scattered among the city? And remove some of the redundancies. So there will be position savings there. You will also find that some of these people that are doing HR functions at other bureaus will actually report back to HR and not to the bureau director or to the or to the deputy city administrator in that. Again, trying to get a more standardization of processes, removing redundancies, get better oversight what is happening. And they're expecting to get some position savings on that. If they have one here, you'll see in this line here, they have communications. Communications is actively going through this process right now. They're about 90% done getting their model going forward, and they're releasing several positions. Because again, some bureaus had 4 to 5 or 6 communications people, and other bureaus like we don't have one, but now they're going to create a pool of them and it'd be a smaller amount. They felt there's a lot of redundancies there. Now, they've also added into this bar, again, from here, is financial budget and financial work in here. So all the bureaus and subject areas have their own financial teams, their own budget teams. They're going to try to standardize those across the city again, and they may end up trying to find redundancies and eliminating positions through that. So this is what's coming through. This will probably take, I think you've seen in May, if you've been reading stuff, they want to start seeing returns on this starting in September, and it may go longer depending upon how a lot of these things are put together. And we may get more instructions from the council when they completely do the final approval of the budget, because they still have some more amendments they're looking at this point. So this reason why I bring you up this isn't going to, initially is not going to impact FPDR. We're a small bureau, so they can't pull people out. We may have a dotted line back to HR because we have one of our people spends about 10 to 15% of her time on HR functions. So she may get a dotted line back up for HR functions into HR to do things certain ways. But we don't have anybody, with the possible exception of our business systems analyst, and I really don't want that to go to BTS, so I'll be making that's the only position that I'm most concerned about. Now, there will be what the council has asked, that all bureau directors and all deputy bureau directors are reevaluated throughout the city. What that means, what that's going to do, I have no idea. But again, they're looking for redundancies. They're looking for, do they really need all these positions? Because when you now have the service area, do you need to have a bunch of directors underneath that? Or can the deputy city administrator take on some of that role? Per the charter, FPDR has a bureau director. So I'm assuming that they'll abide by the charter and leave my position in. But the work I do still has to be done by somebody. So if you take the term title director off, who's going to do it? I don't know. But again, this has a lot of concerns for the employees. We're already seeing layoffs happening, even though we're not going to see layoffs here. There's what they call bumping. So if you lay off somebody in a union and they have more seniority, they can look elsewhere in the city and bump somebody out of that position who has less seniority. And so that has several of my people concerned in here. I only see one, maybe two positions that would have a concern with that, but again, it just makes people nervous. And I can only imagine some bureaus that are worried about bumping as well as worried about having staff laid off. It's a big issue here through the city with employees. And the CPPW finally was resolved, so that took that off the table. We now have our first, well, it's not done. It's a temporary agreement that has to go through the approval of both the union and the city. But it's nice to have their first contract in place so we know what's going on and we can plan and do things. Because they've been in limbo. They've been part of that union for over a year, year and a half and had no contract. So the employees didn't know things. See what else I have here. Oh, one other thing that they will do here is within each service area, they will look for, the best one is to look at public safety. They combined those and did this work starting about a year and a half ago, is they look for all the common behind the scenes work that each bureau does. Okay, everybody does a little bit of procurement. Everybody does HR. Everybody does some of the finance and some of the other areas like that. And so what they did is they took all those from police, fire, and 9/11 and moved them into one unit under public safety. So you don't have 4 or 5 different payroll groups. You have one payroll group. And that's been a challenge for us because we lost our experts on police and fire, because that's been some of the issues we've had. But the idea, again, is you eliminate redundancies. And supposedly we'll get more efficient once the model gets up to place with that. So those are some other ways we'll look at it. So I'll stop sharing that just. So again, there's no immediate impact to FPDR. Will remain as an intact bureau. There were some rumors going around, unfortunately, with my staff saying that they're going to bust us up. No, they never had plans to do that, but we had to just reassure everybody that we're going to be an intact bureau. We'll continue our mission and perform the tasks outlined in the charter and the administrative rules. As of now, I will remain the bureau director. I always think I'll report to Sarah Morrissey. She's the DCA of city operations starting July 1, where I'm now Jonas Beery, but he will go into the chief finance officer at that point. Kim and Stacy will continue reporting to me and performing the same duties while retaining their job titles. But again, they're going to be reevaluating the deputy director and the director positions going forward with that. So any questions on that? That's still going to be, from staff-wise, still a lot of concerns over the next several months while all these changes go in and more shuffling around and potentially more layoffs with it. And then the union bumping, which has got my staff more concerned at this point. Okay, so I think the last one I have is future meeting agendas. So from here to the rest of the year, our meetings will start at 12:30. Julie will keep reminding you because this room has got somebody after us and we need to give enough time to, we've got our state of FPDR in September. We tend to run long with it. We've got to move it up a half hour so we don't end up blocking the meeting behind us with it. July 22nd is our next meeting. We have no agenda topics at this time with it, and without maybe the exception of any budget changes and that Stacy said we could hold in September if there's nothing else. So we'll keep that open, and I'll reach out to you probably the first part of July to see if anybody has anything they want to add, or let you know if we have anything that comes up. We tend to cancel probably most of our July meetings because that just seems a lull in the year. September 23rd is our next one. We have the state of FPDR, and we'll probably have some other stuff coming through. And just one little piece of information here. The city council may review the FPDR funding later this year. You know, we've had talks by a various person who tends to come in and talk over funding. They may or may not. We don't know. I'm just throwing this out that this came in just in case something does happen. At least you're not totally unaware of it. But if anything happens, I'll let you know. And at this point, I'm not expecting anything, but just want to keep you informed just in case there is anything. That's what we have for future meetings. And if you have any meeting ideas or objectives or anything like you want more reports, Kyle, let us know. We'll see what we can come up with you for you or anything like that. And we can go ahead and be glad to help out and do those type of things.
Thank you. This is kind of unprecedented, but I just wanted to not miss this opportunity. I was going to talk to Trustee Creamer after, but I thought it would be worth sharing with the whole board. In terms of claims approval, we are fortunate at FPDR. I think the adjuster with the least amount of experience administering claims has 25 years. And we go through a pretty extensive process of training when they're onboarded to make sure they are really versed in the FPDR rules. And we also do struggle time to time with claim approvals, and we reach out to the city attorney's office. We vet it at my level and even at SAM level sometimes, but I wanted to just make sure that I brought that up. I didn't bring it up initially, so I thought I'd say that before we close. Okay,
Well said.
thank you.
Sam, we think we wound you all the way down, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Okay. Well, without anything else, I think we can call this meeting adjourned. Good to see everybody, and we'll watch for July.
Thank you all.
Okay,
you.
thank you.